Dota 2 is in big trouble and we need to do something fast. But there is one saving grace of Dota 2 and we'll get back to that in a minute. Let's talk about the Dota 2 player count. In 2016, 2017, that's where we saw our most consistent number of players. If you scroll back even farther in 2015, that's where we had our biggest peak as far as I can see at 1.2 million monthly players. But 2016 was probably the hottest year for Dota 2. Since then, the only time we've breached 1 million monthly players was during COVID, the pandemic, in March 2019. Since then, we haven't really even gotten close to 1 million, and we've kind of maintained this range of, 660,000 to around, high 800,000s, since then, and it's been a pretty good range. Like, we haven't completely tanked, but now there's been a big rumor going around that there's not going to be a true site documentary for the International 2022. Now, why is this such a big deal? Because Dota 2, think about it, what is the one thing that is unique to Dota 2 compared to all esports? Even though it is not nearly the biggest esport by far. What is the main thing that attracts new people to Dota 2 other than explaining the gameplay? The main thing that attracts people to Dota 2 is the insane prize pools. If you go to top esports earnings, it's all Dota 2 players. The first 20 people, and then obviously there's more Dota 2 players after that, but the top 20 people are all Dota 2 players. Why? Because the International is one of the greatest esports events ever. If we go to Dota 2 prize pool tracker, we can see the international events, and it's going up every single year, from 10 million in 2014 to 18 million in 2015 to 20 million in 2016, 24, 2017, 25, 34, and then 2021 we got to a whopping $40 million. Now, this actually is mainly because of the 2020 event was canceled due to COVID, so it kind of got built up much longer than the other events, but this year, we've tanked down to 13 million. Now, obviously, $13 million is more than you and I are going to have under normal circumstances, but this is a huge deal in my opinion, because think about it. If you're going to tell someone about Dota 2 other than it being a MOBA, and you could be like, oh, it's like chess, blah, 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 what is going to attract someone who has no idea what Dota 2 is? It has the biggest prize pool in esports, right? And with this being the current prize pool for the 2022 International, it almost feels like, oh, that's a thing of the past. Like, Dota 2 used to be so crazy and cool. Now it's just, I don't know. I think Valve should have stepped up and increased the prize pool. It's like they really don't care. And if you think, okay, whatever, it's just one tournament. Well, first off, it's the biggest esports event of the year for Dota 2. And sometimes the biggest esport event for the year for all games, right? No one has a prize pool even close to these prize pools. Now, Valve takes 75% of the contributed money for themselves. These contributed prize pools we're seeing is that 25%. And Valve throws up 1.6 million of their own money, and then the rest is from contributions, basically in-game purchases to feed the prize pool. So not only is this a big deal for just kind of like the big picture for Dota 2, but for any sponsors who were questioning, hey, maybe I should get into, Dota 2, sponsor the events, get with some teams, etc., etc. Now it's almost like, you know what, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Look how much the prize pool has decreased. Like, maybe the game's on its way out. That's probably what investors are thinking, right? I'm not saying players, I'm saying like big time investors. Like, if there was ever an opportunity to invest in Dota 2, it would be this tournament if the prize pool was like around 40 million, maybe even 50 million, right? As the years go by, you should see an increase, not a decrease of players, not a decrease in the biggest esports event ever, right? It's almost like this is just some extra tournament. So let's compare to some of these smaller tournaments. $3 million, contributed prize pool 0. So Valve actually puts up more money for these majors rather than the International itself. Now, obviously, some internationals, 2.8 million, that's much smaller than what we're used to nowadays, but, if Valve is going to put up 3 million for these majors back in 2016, I think they could have put up like 5 million for the international at least. You know, try to make it somewhat competitive. We're in between. It's like we went all the way back to 2014 where we have about $10 million in prize pool. That's how it feels like to me. And if you still think Valve cares, check out this editing mistake in the last True site. So we're looking at the team compositions, and then they show this B-roll of one of the team's compositions, and if we go into the game, this is not the current team composition for the match we're watching. It's actually for the next match. They made a critical editing mistake. Now you're probably thinking, okay, like that's not a big mistake. But this is like almost like a feature film. Like imagine there's this type of mistake in some $1 million movie or like multi-million-dollar movie. That's like how big of a production this is for the esports scene, right? TrueSight is one of like the craziest things because obviously there's these massive prize pools for these tournaments, and this is like the premier documentary to watch these things. Like people who don't even like Dota 2 or even play Dota 2 are still gonna watch TrueSight, and they made this type of mistake. I mean, that just tells me that they really don't care at all. With the decreased prize pool, no TrueSight, and the decreasing player count, I feel like we might even see a bigger decrease in the player count. You know, anyone who's thinking of coming back, you know, they're not going to see TrueSight. They're not going to get motivated to come back into the tournament. You know, there's not going to be as much news spreading about the 2022 international. You know, it's less of a prize pool. You know, you might hear that there's less of a prize pool, like big time, there's less of a prize pool. And then people are going to wonder, like, oh, are people still playing that game? Blah, blah, blah. You know, there might be some negative speculation going around. So I just want to compare League of Legends to Dota 2 real quick, the player count. So Dota 2, it's almost like it's decreased over the years, and we don't necessarily want to see that if we want the game to survive. We want what happened in 2016, in 2017, 2015. You know, it seemed like more people were interested in the game at that time. For League of Legends, like, honestly, I don't even watch Worlds, you know, but from 2020, the player count has increased to today to 150 million from 118 million monthly user. But the one saving grace for Dota 2 is definitely the engine that it runs on, the Source engine. There's so many possibilities. There's so many arcade modes. Like, compared to League, Dota 2 is king for casual fun. Like, there's endless fun. You can make your own arcade mode. You can't do that in League. You can make mods for League, and you can't really play with them or you're going to get banned. You can't use third-party programs while you're playing League. Dota 2 has so many more opportunities, and they could change the game and make it a little bit better. You know, I think one of the things that gets people away from Dota 2 is like the endless amount of bugs. There's always these patches, there's always these updates. Like almost every hour there's an update, you know, on some days. It actually is like you'll play a game, update. You'll play another game, small update. You know, 3 hours later you log in again, update. Like some days are actually like that because the engine is so complex. But think about it, we got CSGO and Dota 2, two completely different games using the exact same engine. Like the possibilities are endless. Compared to League, I feel like Dota 2 definitely has the edge, but it's almost like Valve is not taking advantage of what they have. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Comment down below what you guys think. If you're a creator or someone who wants to talk about this topic, join my Discord, get a hold of me. We can talk about it live on stream. I'm happy to do that. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.